listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
So, Paul Simon, hello darkness, my old friend.
Yes.
I'm not feeling the old friend. I'm feeling, you again. If that's how anyone else is feeling. I don't, the thing is, everyone freaks out about daylight savings, but it would still just be dark. It would just be dark an hour later. It would still be dark early. It wouldn't be those beautiful summer days where it's like, dark at 9 and you feel like so light, and as I like to call it, Phil Collins weather, no jacket required. It's just a dream.
Yeah, I was sitting on my couch and it was dark at 5, like pitch black, and I was like, did we just globally decide that it's now just like dark, well, this is why money's not real.
I just have like so many questions. So is weather real? Is like the sun circling it just what, how are we gonna fight the darkness? I want some answers.
My mother offered to give me a garage sale purchase or a thrift store purchase that she got, which is one of those lights for the seasonal adjustment disorder, or
the sad lamp.
Sad lamp. Yeah, and I went, I don't have that. I'm just regular, normal, just sad. It's not a condition. I think I'm just feeling human. That it's hard sometimes to just go, oh, okay, this is it for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Vancouver collective agreement with the 3 months that we get for the beautiful summers, I think, is that we accept collective depression for 9 months.
The rest of the year is devastating.
But the weather has been so unusual.
Really? A tornado?
Vancouver.
Yeah, I think.
Lately, but I've also seen 3 rainbows in the
the rainbow thing was for those of you listening who don't live in Vancouver, we had one afternoon where we had this spectacular rainbow that literally, we've all seen rainbows. This was the best rainbow anyone's ever seen, and then we followed that up with a tornado, which
in Vancouver.
It was also a perfect double rainbow.
It was
a perfect end to end. You could see it. It was incredible.
But has anyone been to UBC since the sort of tornado was off the coast?
It was a spectacularly chaotic scene. From what I know.
We go down to Spanish Banks to walk Frankie, and there's a big tree that was uprooted and tipped over, and it's just been, it must have hit it really hard, that whole UBC point, because there's a lot of damage.
Well,
and the water's
streets closed, and
the water's coming right up to it's covering the whole beach. There's no beach. It's a high tide.
I mean, it's sort of almost too much to contemplate. You know what I mean? It's already been such a big 2 years, and to think about just climate emergency as now we have tornadoes, and it's just a lot. It's just so much.
It's when you add it all up, you're just kind of okay, I guess that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, at this point, I think that every day I wake up and it's this numbing feeling of it's, what do they call it? I think it's called hyper normalization. It's just that we are still going to work. The world ending is not going to be this massive catastrophic event. It's already happened. It's continuously happening, and we are waking up at 7, making ourselves a coffee, and sitting in our home offices.
And just a slow
death.
That frog in the pot of water, and it's just slowly turning up, eh?
Wow. The slow dance to our doom. That's nice. That's
It's a nice way to start off the podcast.
That's cheery.
Well, we just left Halloween. We're all maybe still a little bit, struck
That's what it
with
is.
some...
That's what it is. I've got some carryover. I also just like, I don't know, like it's also, so I traveled for the first time.
Me too.
I had to go to Los Angeles, and so I flew, and I flew into America, and then I flew back, and
Oh my goodness.
it was intense and strange, and also fine, and everything was like whatever, but like even the weather there, it was all fog for like 4 of the 5
weird.
days, which like I'm fine with, but I felt bad for all the other people. Because it just seemed rude of me to bring like foggy weather with me to Los Angeles, but it was just like
Is that usual to have that much fog? I think of San Francisco in fog, so it's not like California doesn't, but LA.
No, but LA not as much. But apparently, because I was staying in Culver City. Apparently, there's like a dip, like kind of a valley dip, and so the fog allegedly lingers in that valley. It might burn off like the rest of the places. Like even just driving like 20 minutes to like Hollywood, you might burn it off. But I had to drive along the coast to Montecito, and it's like basically 2 hours up the coast and then 2 hours back down.
That's the most beautiful place on earth, by the way.
It's really beautiful. But I don't actually know that it's beautiful because we only drove in fog.
Oh my gosh.
Like we only saw the actual coastline for maybe 3.5 minutes on the way back. But it was like all fog nonstop. And even that was just like it I guess I was there during the rainy season. So like, I don't know, one of my Lyft drivers said that made sense, but he said it's like very unusual weather for them to have that much fog for that long.
Yeah.
Cool.
I went to Mexico City.
Oh my gosh.
City,
Wow.
I went to Mexico City for the first time, and let me tell you, like, I'm from Taiwan. I've been to LA, I've been to New York, I've been to massive, massive cities. I have never seen this many people in my life, just out and about. And I also went during Day of the Dead, which was, like it's the event of the year. And I think, it was horrific, first of all, because I think it was I had a great time. I had an amazing time. Ate everything. I
don't know why we wouldn't assume that after you just called it horrific, but
it was so good, other than the parasite that I got. But
Oh no.
the one thing that it was so sign of the times was, I guess in the beginning of the pandemic, before people knew what was happening with COVID and like how it worked, I guess the city developed this belief that that COVID lived on our shoes. And so every store, it doesn't matter, like a little restaurant or like a really nice hotel, they all have these little mats and they're filled with alcohol, and you're supposed to step in these mats and then dry your shoes off. And it's so bizarre because we now know it's been disproven many times that COVID does not live on our shoes.
Yeah.
It does not. It was so bizarre.
Did you have to wear masks indoors?
Yeah, people wore masks indoors and were also really good at wearing masks outdoors. And part of me is like, because if you want to leave your house, you're going to be amongst people, and that just because there's so many people, and like that was just kind of like a given. So there was a lot of, people were wearing masks. And I think Mexico City has a really high vaccination rate, which was also another reason. I mean, like my partner's sister is in school there, and that's why we went to go visit her. And and everyone dresses up for like a week long. It's not just Halloween. Everyone is dressed up. Mom, dad, grandma, the car they came in is dressed up. Everyone is dressed up. And I think like 80% of kids were dressed up as Squid Game managers.
oh my
Which
gosh.
for me, in my mind, I'm like, does that mean these youngins have watched Squid Game? Because it is extremely violent. And I'm like, well, everything's a family affair. Yeah, they must have.
Honestly, my niece has watched more of Squid Game than I have at this point.
Oh my goodness.
She's 12.
Yeah, they were so young. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, they must have watched this with their parents. So
I think they're also seeing it on TikTok.
Yes,
like,
of course.
So it's like being replicated and like different. Anyway,
right.
what a time! That's incredible. Like, what an amazing experience.
And what an amazing segue into what we're going to talk about, really.
Well, lots of dead people in
Horror,
what we're going to talk
sadness,
about.
grief, everything. It's all there. Games.
So much. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And I'm Joanne Tsung.
Yay! And you're listening to Pop This. We're so excited that you are joining us, Joanne. It's so nice to have you back.
So good to be back.
It's been a couple years, and
Literally.
We're talking about You Season 3. And I will say in advance, if you have not watched You Season 3 and you would like to stay spoiler free, maybe just stop now, go watch the show, come back to us.
Yeah, 10 hours. You've got it, or whatever it is. Is it 10 episodes, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yes.
And I will suggest that if you start watching it with your 88-year-old grandmother, and she, she's barely holding on, move on without her when it gets to the swinging episode. I think I made some good choices there. Also, for Grandma's sake, like she always turns her head whenever the intercourse is happening. She's not a big fan of watching intercourse on television, or maybe with me. I don't know.
I
It's
can't
hard
believe
to say.
you're calling it intercourse, but
Oh, because it's fun.
Intercourse?
I love calling it intercourse. I also will sometimes call it relations.
Relations.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Fornications.
Fornications. I like
Fornication's good.
fornications as well.
but this is a podcast where we would never say making love.
I, honest to God, have never used it in my personal life, and I will never use it in pop culture discourse, other than to be like quoting like an SNL character, that guy in the hot tub with Rachel, Will Ferrell and Rachel Dratch in a hot tub. Anyway, so You Season 3, they really upped the ante this time.
Yeah, we dove in head first.
It's a commitment. It's a commitment because it's been a while since previous seasons. So I had to go back and sort of refresh my knowledge of what happened in previous seasons.
I don't know if I can do that. I think I can only handle one hellscape per 2 years.
Well,
or something.
by that I meant just like going back in Wikipedia and reading.
Oh, okay. I thought, man, what did you
summarization.
do? Did you watch the? Oh gosh, yeah. I
All right,
can
well-
only do so much.
Before we dive in too far, let us introduce our delightful guest, Joanne Tsung. Joanne hails from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. Fat, queer, and tattooed, Joanne has found solace and community in writing comedy and has performed for New Moon Comedy and Millennial Line in Vancouver, and virtually for comedy shows in Seattle, Model Minority, and Winnipeg, Party Mix. Joanne, welcome back. Yay!
Welcome. So happy to be here. I love talking about murder. I started listening to podcasts, and the murder ones caught my ears.
Yeah.
And hooked.
You're not alone. We're all there.
Yeah.
The first episode you joined us for was episode 218, where we talked about the first season of You.
Yes.
So excited to have you back
I'm ready.
for this.
I'm ready.
Lisa, do you want to read the background?
I do. Just a second here. Yes, the background. So this comes to you from Winnipeg? No, how about Wikipedia? Where I'm sure they read a lot of Wikipedia as well. You is an American psychological thriller television series based on the books by Caroline Kepnes. It developed by Greg Berlanti and Sarah Gamble. The first season in 2018 follows Joe Goldberg, a bookstore manager and serial killer, who falls in love and develops an extreme obsession with Guinevere Beck. The second season was released in December 2019 and follows Joe as he moves to Los Angeles and falls in love with local heiress Love Quinn. Season 3 follows Joe Goldberg's fraught relationship with Love Quinn, who is pregnant with his child in a new suburban home. In December 2020, the production of the third season was suspended for 2 months due to COVID-19 pandemic and resumed in February 2021. The 10-episode series premiered on October 15th, 2021, and season 4 has already been confirmed.
Of course it has.
Of course it has. Of course it has. AG, do you want to read the synopsis?
Sure.
This way you can get caught up on the show as well, since I know that.
No, I fully watched the show.
Oh, wow. So amazing. Okay, great.
Okay. So in the third season, Joe and Love are married and raising their newborn son, Henry, in the fictitious Californian suburb of Madre Linda. As their relationship dynamic takes a new turn, Joe continues to repeat the cycle of obsession with a burgeoning interest in Natalie Engler, the next-door neighbor. This time, Love flips the script to ensure that her dream of having the perfect family will not be torn away so easily by Joe's compulsive actions. However, after Love takes care of the Natalie problem, Joe turns his obsession to Marianne, a librarian who shares a troubled childhood in the foster system. Further complicating Love and Joe's relationship, Natalie's stepson Theo falls head over heels for Love.
So, what a season. Honestly, what a season. So, I'd love to just I'd like us all to just reflect a little bit about, did you like this season of You, and what worked for you and what didn't? Joanne, you're our guest, so let's start with you.
Oh, the honor. Okay, so I think this season was unhinged. Absolutely crazy. It started crazy, and I think that the producers or writers were like, we have to go all in, and everyone went a little bit crazy during the pandemic. So I think it reflected in this season. What worked for me is that I think that they really zeroed in on this kind of like patternistic serial killer behavior, because I think that maybe for the audience, like at least in the first and second season, it was presented kind of like a love story, like this, like a troubled person who was obviously a serial killer, but there was that issue, right? That like all these women were defending Joe and were like falling in love with him and defending him, being like, I get it. Yeah, you do a little murder. You help out your partner. And so I think this season they really drove in kind of that message of like, he's a serial murderer and he will continue doing this. And I think the twist is that he's with Love this season, and that he has supposedly, kind of settled down in this normalcy of having a child living in the suburbs. And so when the murdering happens, where it's against such a idealistic backdrop, is when we're like, oh damn, here we go again. Here we go again, eliminating what he deems as, well, I guess what he and Love deems as problems. And then I think you really get to see Love's character develop, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I thought the
so
development
beautiful.
of Love's character was really fascinating and great.
And I think, it's for all the reasons that people really don't like the show, of like not wanting to see Joe as this, more men murdering women and sexualizing them and stalking them, is that it's really interesting to see the ways in which the reasons that Love kills, and also why Love kills. So I think it that part was really enjoyable for me, to see her character develop, and to see all the reasons why the kind of I don't know how to explain. There's no words for it, but like the when jellyfishes move, kind of like you're kind of fading in and out of her head of what she's going through, of her grasping at trying to have normalcy, but also her innate nature of being murderous, of being a serial killer, and having these issues. And I think a lot of it came through in the relationship of her and her mother. That was really interesting for me to see as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's stick with what we like so far then, and we'll come back to what we are not liking, because I'd love to know a bit more. AG, what about you?
Well, so I don't enjoy watching this series. So I'm not really sure where to go with that, but I'll just say that, yeah, I don't know. I found it hard to watch the first series but had to, because you and Lisa loved it. Mm-hmm. And so
Fair.
Then the season 3 comes up and you're like, hey, let's do season 3. And then so I had to kind of review season 2 and watch season 3. And it's just like, man, I don't like watching this show that sort of you're like following this guy who stalks and kills women. And you're just in that mindset. And I know that's the point of it. And I know that's why it's kind of like a twist on your typical murder show. But I still, like, it just gives me this creepy, uncomfortable feeling that I don't enjoy in my, bingeable TV. And yeah, every time when I'm watching the show and you see them like building that box in a basement somewhere, I'm just like, oh, here we go again.
I mean, their dedication to craftsmanship, stunning. Mm-hmm. Stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Lisa,
and that literally every city is making these types of
absolutely. Every
boxes.
city has a plexiglass box that you can just build a kit in your basement. Amazing. Lisa, what about you? What did you like?
What did I like? I have a real loathing of the suburbs, just having, which has been documented many times on this podcast, having grown up in them. I think they're just seething pits of awfulness. And so I very, very much like the fact that how horrible are these two people? Well, let's find out. We'll put them in the most horrible place we can.
Yeah.
And I love the counterintuitiveness of that idea that these are hellish people and they should be in a hellish setting. Yeah, they are. They're in the suburbs, They're having to have neighbors like Sherry and Carrie and all these other people who, I don't give my kids sugar, and even in raspberries. And
they're literally driven to kill at this point. I'm murdering people.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not really, part of you is kind of like, I don't know if we're gonna miss any of these people. I liked the sort of the domesticity of their hellish life. I like the fact that there were anti-vaxxers that came in. I thought that was a super clever little bit of info there. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that there was the kind of scandal of the getting kids admitted into university. So I thought there were some interesting things that maybe because they had this opportunity to keep writing when the pandemic happened, they got to put a few more of those things in. So I really like that. I fear when I watch it that part of me starts to go, yeah, I can see why he killed him. Yeah, I definitely, I fear that feeling inside.
You are a big fan of the Nancy Meyer kitchen. How did you feel about the sort of kitchen porn on this show?
Oh, it was a beautiful house, wasn't it? That big open plan
house.
It was a really beautiful open plan design. I liked the whole thing. I loved her wardrobe. Love's wardrobe is impeccable. Her makeup, her jewelry. Beautiful. Everything about that. I love that library. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that this town had a library that was really cool. I loved Marianne. I thought she was so beautiful. And her wardrobe was all the women in this show get to look so beautiful and have such complex characters.
I would be so surprised if I went to my local library and saw an event like that happening and the librarian dressed up like that for Halloween.
Yeah, like a $20,000 event.
Yeah,
beautiful
exactly.
event.
Yeah, so I liked all of those things. Those are all the things I liked.
Yeah, I also really, I think Love Quinn is one of the all-time great characters. I think that they they didn't serve her as well as they could have this season. I really did want her to survive. I wanted her
Me too.
to best Joe. I wanted her to kill Joe. Yes. I think that would have been quite satisfying.
That's very underestimating of Joe.
You know what? He's had a bit of a pass for a while. Like he's always sort of, people always think of him as like so clever and so smart, but he's just a walking hard-on who masturbates in public, and he doesn't have
He's a sociopath.
Yeah, he just like does not. He gets like the writers give him a lot more credit than I think he deserves. Now that's not to say Penn Badgley's performance isn't great, because I actually think it's very, very good. Mm-hmm. But I thought that actually what I liked most about this season is I felt like the writers like were like kind of like turning their whole like sort of arch like serial killer thing on the audience and being like, this is what you like. We're gonna give you 2 serial killers. We're gonna see how complicit you are as viewers in this whole deliciously awful mess. So I felt I like being read to filth by a show I'm watching. I like to have because I found this is actually like the season where I was just like, I don't find Joe at all in any way interesting anymore. And I think that that's by design. I think we're supposed to become more and more contemptuous of Joe. And I think that that's like part of the character development. But I also think like they do that thing where they tell us they give us like a very complex character like Love, and she's so interesting and she's so sort of bad, but also deeply flawed in a way that's very relatable. But then it's Joe? Like Joe's the one that she loses her like everything over?
Sanity to Yeah.
Like that's like
why him?
Like why go beige
Would you
when you
pick
can
Theo
have turquoise
or something?
Well, I mean Theo is
You know what factoid I read?
Theo. I did like Theo, but no, obviously not Theo.
In real life, the actors playing Theo and Love are only like a year apart in age.
Yeah, they're also dating.
They're dating.
They're dating in real life.
He was gay.
My
No,
God.
they're dating in real life. Yeah, I just read about it today. And did you know that the guy who plays Theo actually auditioned for Joe, didn't get it, and then auditioned for 40 and didn't get it, and then got Theo this year.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He really wanted to be a part of the show. Maybe he's a serial killer. That's the best disguise to be in a show about serial killer.
He has beautiful hair.
I was watching the Halloween from last year, the Jamie Lee Curtis one, and Theo was in that.
Oh, I forgot that.
Oh,
Yeah, he was
nice.
the boyfriend of Jamie Lee Curtis's granddaughter.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So, what did we hate? Obviously,
Wait.
I mean, I hated Joe, but
Okay, of course, yes. I think Joe became tiresome to watch, and I think the reason is, I mean, like collectively, I think because the show is so popular in this kind of like the binging millennial world, is that they inserted all these, kind of like half political views in, right? Like the anti-vaxxers who were there, and like people who Sherry and Carrie who were kinky, and all these things that are just like so normalized in everyday life. And I really liked that one last thing about how much I love the show. So sorry, AG. Is that it's so the hype around true crime and thrillers and all this things that are coming out on Netflix is that we watch it with this awe and disgust and horror, where the show, I think, so normalizes because we see the story and, what's going on in their heads that is so, that's not normal, but the way that they act out, it is so normal. Like they're just our neighbors, that it's almost, I think, like a dialogue of how like murderers and rapists are just out there. Like they're not like these monsters.
They're not monsters. They're actual
they're not
people.
these monsters that are ugly and uneducated and et cetera, right? They're just like normal people who own bakeries with a basement.
Of
Can
horrors.
Can I just talk about something that I really didn't like?
Yes,
about
please.
Extra is speaking of the bakery. Like, we're to believe that love single-handedly opens a bakery, bakes everything that is served in it every day, is the sole employee of the bakery, like that's serving everybody, and she has a newborn baby, and she's like
She's a woman for our times. Really.
and covering up
How does
all
she
these
do it?
murders,
And murders.
also
yeah, I know.
yeah, and also puts dinner on the table for her family every night.
How does she
With
do it?
some extra surprises in it.
And has time to have an affair with the 20-year-old next door.
And sex.
And caters huge events once in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, to me, that whole like, oh yeah, she could easily bake like 100 different items for the bakery every day in between doing all this. Sure. That's believable.
Some more unrealistic standards put on women.
Right? Very good point. Very good point. And did Joe actually work at the
where's-
library
yeah,
or
exactly,
just volunteer there?
Whereas Joe literally doesn't have a job. Love has like
A
she's
thousand.
1,000
Yeah.
jobs.
Well, I also thought it was like, I mean, it's so tiresome because we see that, like, we know that Joe, like, it's very clear how much Joe actually hates women by, like, how as soon as he sees one who becomes real and she's no longer this idealized version of whatever he fantasized about rescuing, he kind of has to kill them. And so we know this from the past, but like it's extra clear here because he can't look at Love without feeling nauseated because he sees her as some sort of like serial murderer, whereas he kills for purpose. I mean, it's so diluted and it's so ridiculous. And just the idea that he believes he would be a better, more fit parent than she would. I mean, it's just the misogyny is just off the charts. It's wild.
Well, I mean, let's really look at this. I mean, Joe has a problem with
let's.
clingy women. I mean, he's not clinging himself, right? So of course he doesn't like that in women. And so, I mean, think about it that way, right?
Oh yeah, you're right. You're Love's a monster.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting also that they go to therapy.
Oh my God, the therapy. And that just goes out the window too, by the way. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, they really get things together. It really works for them. But I do think I do think that one of the subjects I really want to talk about is Sherry and Carrie.
Oh my God.
I mean,
This is now about Sherry and Carrie?
Yeah, that
No more.
okay,
No
sorry.
more
That would be the one thing I mentioned that I liked about the show is the journey of Sherry.
Yeah, Sherry's journey is amazing.
Just Sherry.
yeah.
Sherry just selling out him just quick as a button. It was amazing. Just like I was.
Yeah.
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 I have to say, yeah, Shalita Grant's performance is incredible.
Yes.
And what they do in the cage, like, and honestly, what the couple even goes through in the cage. Like, I know it's Sherry that's like the ultimate, like, whatever. She's incredible, and I love her so much. But the fact that you actually, like, or me as a viewer can be like, they do communicate really well, ultimately.
Yeah.
I can't believe that I am buying into their whole, like, yeah, we hacked our marriages and then we finally hacked the truth. And, like, finally we're, like, at this place of, like, when they're on a TED stage at the end.
Oh my gosh, they earned
Gorgeous.
that. They
Wow.
earned
Yeah.
that TED Talk.
They
Incredible.
did. They
Incredible.
did.
Yeah. I love it so much.
And I love the way that they have just decided, like, they are the ultimate in compartmentalizing things, that I will take this trauma, which for most people would destroy, and
Yes. but
make
not
it into
them.
an institution and a new way for couples to have therapy. Like, it is stunning. Who are the
It
sociopaths?
is.
I love it.
Answer that question. I think that's what kind of I do like about the show too, is it does make you wonder these things, like watching her mother, just this horrific human being. And, you know, and just the way she goes through the world. I mean, I think that the show is fun because it's always asking you to go, so who is it you think is the really evil one? Is it maybe Marianne's ex-husband? Do we particularly feel bad that guy's, you know, out of the way? Do we feel bad that he's been drinking amphetamines in his power things every morning and their poor little child is...
I mean, think the murderers are still the bad people.
Right? That's what you say. That's what you say. But I challenge you.
What a bold declaration. The murderers are still the bad people. Yeah. But I will say the others, like, did some of them deserve to get murdered? A couple did.
A couple did.
Yeah.
Definitely Marianne's ex.
Yes.
Right? Definitely Marianne's ex. My goodness.
Like
I wanted his death to be bloodier, to be honest.
Wow. The fantasy, though, I do like. I like the fantasy of, and this is why I think the show is inviting us to a bit of accountability with ourselves, because we are having these discussions like, so who is the real bad person? And then AG has to be like, the murderers, guys. Remember? The slicey slices.
The slicey slices.
And there's quite and you know, let's be honest too, we're just looking at season 3. The murders they have behind them.
Oh boy.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, there's a lot of murders.
It's a killing spree in this season.
This season really is a killing spree. Yeah.
I love and this is not love. I don't love, really. I don't love. In this parts, the commentary that's injected, also about society, I think, you know, when Natalie goes missing and Marianne talks about the white woman missing syndrome. I think it's so interesting because, like, you know, they kind of insert these kind of real political, you know, of the society that we all do this. That like when a white woman goes missing, truly it is over covered on the news, and it also literally happened with a recent white woman who went missing.
Yeah.
Gabby Petito, and I think. Then after a while, when his name is slipping my mind, but the blind librarian Dante, love him. When he talks about how he is a Yale or Harvard graduate with, you know, like with already 2 adoptive kids, and how they have been on the waiting list or how they haven't been able to adopt kids, it, you know, speaks to how easily, you know, people can just have kids who can just go ahead and have kids versus people who try so hard to have kids with all these supposed credentials and aren't able to.
Yeah, like they want to.
The social commentary is cool.
Yeah, well, the social commentary is cool, but like I guess I get a little bit frustrated that they pick it up and put it back down really easily. Yes. Like it's not a continued thread. Like Marianne makes a really, you know, valid point, and makes a lot of really valid points, but she doesn't really get a chance. Like even when Ryan is obviously like friends with the judge and is gonna like manage to sort of subvert her attempts at joint custody, like, you know, there's some ongoing conversation, but I feel like it ends up being Marianne's job as the black character in that particular situation to do the work of exploring social inequity and racial inequity in this world. Like it never comes up with Sherry's character. Dante brings up the inequities he faces as a blind gay man. Like none of the other characters are sort of touched by that. And so I guess that sort of does make sense, but the show isn't actually doing the work to really explore the tension between the privileges of the characters who have no experiences with marginalization versus the characters who are seemingly utterly defined by their historically oppressed identities. And I find that a little bit frustrating. I like that they bring it up, but I just wish that there was like a little bit more. But I wonder if that's a reflection of the writer's room. Because like Tati, oh my gosh, her last name fell out of my head. But Tati Gabrielle, who plays Marianne, I was reading an interview with her, and she ended up making some suggestions about dialogue changes that were, because I think at one point, at one point her character is supposed to refer to missing Black women as them, but Tati said, no, I have to say us. Like, I am a Black woman. Like, and these are important distinctions in the writer's room, that if you don't have enough people who have those lived experiences, your script is going to fail you a little bit, you know?
Yeah, but but I would say one of the other things that's a big part of the show is privilege. Especially with Love being an heiress and all this money and finding out her mother doesn't want to give her any. And the way that Marianne finally does bond with Joe is that he talks about his upbringing in foster care. And and then she can, feels closer to him because they have this similar situation. And they do a lot of flashbacks to Joe in foster care and what happened to him. Yes, Andrea, I realize that the murderers are still the bad people. I do. But it is interesting that they spent a lot of time in this particular season on that rather than on the first season, which was more, he was, he had that man teach him and help him and things, and he was
but the man locked him in his glass cage. Like, he abused him too, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, he died from COVID, so they couldn't bring him back for any of the flashbacks.
Oh my god.
He was in Desperately Seeking Susan. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, he died from COVID early on.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that was really sad. And so they couldn't bring him back, so they sort of had this other story that sort of became the center point. But I mean, one of the things that I kind of find really interesting is how we finally get a scene between Marianne and Love at the end. And even though they are sort of these women who ostensibly have fallen for Joe, they actually are deeply invested kind of in saving each other from Joe ultimately. Like, that's how they end up bonding. And I really appreciated Marianne's speech.
Yeah,
and
I know.
I just thought it was like kind of heartbreaking. Like, it was really lovely.
And
I also
motherhood.
found
I
also found that it was nice to see that there's two female characters who are kind of set up to be against each other because they both are interested and have the same romantic interest. But in the end, like, Love decides to spare Marianne because she's a mother. And Marianne follows, like, she kind of gives advice to Love. And also, like, follows, Love's advice and, like, leaves.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of, like, an unexpected ending to it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, women don't usually listen to other women in those situations in fictional TV.
Yeah, when they're pitted against each other.
Yeah, and decide to just flee. Which makes me wonder about what they're going to do in season 4, because obviously Marianne is going to be in that story, but I hope it's not a story of, like, well, I don't want her to get murdered, obviously.
I hope
but
it's
also
Marianne finally putting an end to Joe. Like, that would
I have a good feeling about that.
I don't know. I do have a good feeling about that. I think that would be like, we're getting sort of towards the end, unfortunately, even though we've only talked about, like, just a few things, because we could talk about this show kind of intensely. But, like, did you guys see the twist coming?
No.
No, I did not see the twist
I didn't
coming
either.
at all. But I noticed, and I don't know if anyone else did, but I felt like, and I haven't looked this up yet, but I felt like the ending was very much like Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
You've never seen Silence of the Lambs? Oh.
It's like, I know it's a classic, but listen.
Well, it's got
I
murder.
just started on the horror
so
streak.
know.
Right.
So, so no one else has seen it, only me?
I've seen it, but I'm trying to remember what you're talking about with Silence of the
Well,
Lambs.
at the end is that, Hannibal Lecter escapes from the prison, and then you see him at the end. He's in another
the
country.
Yep.
And he's walking. He gets off the phone. He phones Clarice, and he hangs up, and then he's going to follow that guy, and he's in another country, and he puts that hat on. And this one ends in Paris.
Yes,
and Joe
yes.
is just walking off into the...
disappearing, those high-waisted pants that are somehow kind of cool.
Yeah.
But also missing, like, how many fingers and how many toes?
His finger got sewn back on. He's still missing the two toes.
Oh, my
The
gosh.
2 toes are a sacrifice to his resurrection, as it were.
I
It was
think
elaborate, that
yeah.
one.
I definitely did not see the twist coming, and I think it was so interesting. There were some moments that maybe I didn't like because they were so incredulous. Like, I think the slow motion, I'm going to bring it back for 1 second, to when Sherry and Carrie and Joe and Love were having their first night of exploration.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's the turning point, because you're like, something is going to happen with the couple, but where Love and Joe are downstairs, and because she lost it, and she's yelling about how she had to kill Natalie, and I'm like, that seems too almost easy, like that's her slip up, because then obviously Sherry and Carrie hears, and I'm like, and then at the same time, when Joe eventually, the twist of him being like, I studied what you were growing and therefore made myself an antidote, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I guess you wouldn't have a job, so you were just around the house puttering, and so I'm like, that's awfully convenient, but it's
But if you're a serial killer, your paranoia is up, and I would. I'll tell you one thing: if I lived with Love, I would never sleep. I'd have one eye open all the time.
Oh my God! But she's so hot.
She is so hot.
Oh no, she is. She is. And I love that one scene, which I thought was magnificent. Just after she is pretty sure she's murdered Theo, but she's at home reading baby books for names.
Yeah.
Just completely disassociated from all of that.
Yeah.
Leaving people in that box to die, killing a young boy, destroying the whole family next door. But I wonder what Julia. Yeah. I thought that was great.
Do you think like Theo and his dad, I forget his dad's name.
Matthew.
But do you think they're going to show up in season 4?
I don't think so. I think we're done with them.
But he knows what happened. Theo knows what happened. And Matthew was pretty intent on getting back whoever killed his wife.
Well, and I wonder, I feel like a little bit of a loophole in where, even though they had wrapped it up so perfectly that like it was the anti-vaxxer who cheated on her, then he had to kill her, and then hang himself, that he didn't believe that it was that was a story.
Yeah.
But he confronts Joe. Like, he knows that Joe did it. He leaves Joe on the ground for Love to kill. He's like,
right.
I hope she does kill you.
Yeah.
And then, like, it seems like he she did kill him, allegedly. We'll see. I mean, Theo, I feel like, would have some really traumatic head injury from that tumble down the stairs. Like, that was a lot of blood.
Yep.
I have one outstanding question that will live with me probably, until I forget this show. Sherry and Carrie bringing a gun to their foursome. Is that just...
and a number of drugs in perfectly cut out foam suitcase.
I mean, I get the drugs, I get the sex toys. The gun is where I have the question. Like, they brought a gun
Obviously,
to their
some
foursome.
things get out of hand every once in a while, and you got to bring it back in order. I don't know. Signing those NDAs was pretty much the giveaway.
Honestly, the NDA I get. Like, she's famous, he's famous. Like, I get the NDA smart. That is a tight, but I mean, also a little sloppy, since they tell them what is going to be in the NDA, and then they don't sign it. And then we never see them sign the NDA ultimately.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's
it could be
sloppy.
I agree. And like, maybe it's just maybe it's a scene, maybe it's a kink for some people,
She loves to make him suck on the gun. It's great. No, I like that. I'm on board for that.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I was married to Carrie, I would probably want him to play with a gun too. Mm-hmm. Although I did really appreciate that Carrie is absolutely not homophobic at all, and is willing to play. He wants to show up.
Yeah.
And, I mean, as soon as they had that bro weekend, I was like, okay, well, there's some stuff happening here. But I like that there more than that. We get it confirmed that
he's very in touch with himself.
He touches himself
in his
a lot,
own way.
too.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Fun fact, just a fun fact: Fresh Tart, Love's Bakery is Luke Steiner.
Oh,
you're kidding.
I am not.
No
I'm
way.
gonna have to go back and study that. Oh my gosh.
I did also I agree with that. The whole bakery opening up was almost too convenient and just too like, how is she's doing the, all of the contract work, that all of the paint
I
job,
know,
the social media, the baking cupcakes.
She had to probably create like the logo and the website. And...
Yeah. Like, when does she have time? I'm like, I got a dog during the pandemic and I have no time.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Well, I know this is going to be a fraught question, but does season 3 of You pop?
Yeah. I mean,
I
if you, I hate to
loved
say it,
it.
if you liked season 1 and season 2, you'll like season 3.
Agreed.
I mean, I loved it for all the reasons that we kind of get to see a show about serial killers in a way that's not... It is entertainment, but not in the way that true crime is entertainment, of these like horrendous people who had like horrible upbringings that brought them to become a killer. Whereas these are just like normal people who had a traumatic past, because tons of people go through divorces, foster care systems, and are not murderers, I
Yes.
think.
Sure,
Exactly,
but
yeah.
apparently no one ever becomes a serial killer without having a compromised relationship with their mother. Their fathers
yeah.
could never have existed,
Nope.
Nope.
but it's always down to the moms.
Always. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tiring. So
Yeah.
tiring.
Yeah.
Well, let's just hope good things for little Henry. That's all we can hope for.
Henry's got the best dads.
Yeah,
oh my
exactly.
God.
Yeah.
And then when
that
they
was
have to
that was a nice
explain.
moment.
Yeah.
But
You have
he
to
has
explain
seen
what's
some
happening.
things for
He has.
a baby.
Yes, he has.
Henry has seen some stuff. You're right. We love to leave our episodes on something we recommend. Joanne, as our delightful guest, would you like to go first?
Yes, and I had a really hard time thinking about this because there's so many. I'm consuming so many things right now. But I've been listening to the Opportunist podcast, and it is a podcast about people who are like scammers who take opportunity and turn sinister, and it's incredible. It's kind of a true crime podcast, but it's not, it's not always rape and murder. It's people who take advantage of opportunities, and it's incredible.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know that one. Okay.
The other thing I was gonna say was laziness. Oh my God, I hope I'm not breaking any rules, but Laziness Does Not Exist by Dan Price. Oh no, Dan Price. Incredible book.
Oh, book, not a podcast. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a book, and it's honestly, it's shifting my paradigm of everything I'm thinking about productivity, especially in the past 2 years. Like I was laid off in the pandemic and had a lot of time to think and rethink. And this book talks a lot about the way we think about laziness. And it's incredible. It goes into the history and then talks about how we project it onto ourselves, our peers, and our families, etc. And it's incredible. I like it a lot.
That's awesome. Thank you. Lisa, what about you? What are you recommending?
Yeah, I've been on CBC Gem watching a British comedy called Ghosts. And it is such a funny, sweet show. So this young couple inherits this house, a mansion, because this old woman dies and she has no heirs. So they go through the family tree and they find her. And the house is inhabited by ghosts from over the years. There's about 20 of them in the house. And I won't say how it happens because it's quite fun and interesting. But she is able to communicate with the ghosts that live in this house.
Nice.
And it's so I understand that the Americans have just done a version this year. I'm going to skip it because I like British comedy a lot. And
I love British comedy.
Yeah. And it's just very sweet and charming and funny and goofy and just silly. And I really love all the characters in it. So yeah, highly recommended. CBC Gem Ghosts.
Awesome. That's great. AG, what about you?
Well, ever since we watched Safe a few weeks ago, I decided to rewatch some Todd Haynes stuff. And so I decided to watch Mildred Pierce, starring Kate Winslet from, it's now like 10 years old. I can't believe it's from 2011. But it's superb. Like it's so great. It's about like Kate Winslet is amazing in it, and it's this lush, beautiful, like the scenery is amazing, and it's about, she plays like a single mom during the Depression who's trying to raise two daughters, and her wealthy husband leaves her, and yeah, it's sort of like NPR called it like this modern film noir. And I think that's pretty accurate. And it stars Guy Pearce as her love interest. And so, yeah, it's a bit of a sort of parallel to her in Mare of Easttown.
Yeah.
And then also James LaGrosse, who we talked about in this episode.
Oh,
He's in that as well.
He's back.
Exactly.
Awesome. Amazing.
Highly recommended. It's amazing.
That's great. Thank you. I am going to recommend just like a real kind of like trash fun TV show. Speaking of murderers and serial killers, I finally watched the first season of Prodigal Son. It's
that's on my list.
It's on Netflix. It stars Martin Sheen, Tom Payne, Lou Diamond Phillips, Aurora Parano, and Bellamy Young. Also Keiko Ajita. She's great in it. She's so great in it, and she's getting a bit more to do in season 2 so far. There's only 2 seasons. I don't know if there'll be a third necessarily. I'm not at the end of season 2 yet, but it's basically the concept is son, the son of a serial killer becomes a profiler. He's also deeply traumatized by his father's murdering. Martin Sheen is going just full, like wild eyes and hair and creepy, and it's deeply enjoyable. Unfortunately,
Oh, well.
I hate to report,
If
but
you've already finished you can try Prodigal Son. Is that
honestly,
what you're saying?
yeah. If you're done,
Okay.
you
You're
dive
ready.
into Prodigal
Yeah, you're
Son,
ready.
and
You're ready.
it's I'm sorry, but you'll be charmed by it. Can't help it. Not by Martin Sheen's character, who has murdered 23 people, but the performance is something else, and the son is good. And honestly, it's so nice to see Lou Diamond Phillips as kind of like a sort of hero role. Like, I don't know, I just feel like we don't see enough
That
of
is
him,
a
so.
weird cast, and I'm definitely going to sink in there because that is a strange group of people to put together.
Yeah, and I don't know if you recognize the name Bellamy Young, but she played Mellie from Scandal. She's like Fitz's wife. Anyway,
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love her.
yeah. So she's great too. Anyway, it's like quite a weird little show. Really finds its footing about 4 episodes into season 1. So give it a chance if you like dark weirdness.
I made a mistake. I've made a mistake. The book that I recommended is by Devin Price.
Okay.
Devin
Not
Price.
Dan. I'm so
Okay.
sorry. I'm so sorry, Devin. By Devin Price. And I was going to say, Lisa, have you watched W1A? If you like
Yes.
British.
Yes,
Oh my
I
gosh.
have, but it was
One
a
of
bit
my
too
faves.
close to work for me. But yeah,
Oh, no. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
yeah.
But it was incredible. I loved it. One of my favorite
Oh no,
shows.
right. I think you'll like Ghosts then.
Okay.
Great.
All
Well,
right.
this has been really lovely. Joanne, where do you want people to come find you if you want them to come find you?
Well, Instagram at JTSUNG, where I post now mostly photos of my pandemic finds, which is a girlfriend and my dog. And sometimes I'll do comedy shows. I didn't find her; she found me. We found each other through comedy. We're in love. We got profiled by CBC, which is exciting.
Wow.
But yeah, Instagram is the way. I'm on Twitter, I guess, as well, but I mostly post my high scores on there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us again. It's
Always
been
a
really nice
pleasure.
to hang out with you. Thank you everyone for listening. It's we're really grateful that you do. It's really nice to know that just like some people out there just like listening to our voices, spending some time with us. We hope you have a good time. We do. You can hang out with us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You could listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Libsyn and so many other places. I don't know. Name
Anywhere
it.
you get
You can
podcasts.
find us. All the places. Stitcher. All the places. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to Andrea Gin, who co-hosts and produces this podcast. We really appreciate it all the time, especially when we make her watch season 3 of You. So
10
it doesn't go
episodes.
unnoticed. I just
episodes.
want to say that's all. That's all.
Yeah, your effort is appreciated.
It is very appreciated. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.